Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's ASEAN Midday Market Watch. Our guest today is Stephen Innes, Chief Global Market Strategist at Axi. Hi, good afternoon, Steve. How are you today?
Hello, Brian. Thanks for having me on again this week. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Let me take a quick look at markets across the region before we get your insights. It's a sea of red, of course, across the region. Markets are down. We start with the Nikkei, which is at 28,527.81. It's down 1.02%. The Shanghai Composite is down 1.2% at 3,580.83. The Hang Seng is down 2.4% at 29,434.08. The ASX 200 Australia is closed today for a public holiday. So the Kospi is down 2.22% at 3,137.77. Looking at closer to home, we've got the SGX down 1.23% at 2,937.06. And rounding off, we've got Bursa Malaysia, which is the only one that bucks the trend. It's up 0.51% at 1,584.69. So what do you make of regional markets trading this morning, Steve?
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit of a blow off of the froth that's been in the markets for the past little while. We had a little bit of negative news coming out of the U.S. in the form of stimulus that may get delayed, but there is the option here where they can put it through, the Democrats can just put it through a reconciliation process if they want. Obviously, Biden wants to do a bilateral deal, but there are other options to get it through. I think the other issue is the obvious lockdown situations. Those continue to concern investors, none more so than the mobility restrictions leading into a Chinese New Year, which has really caught the market completely flat-footed last week. Now we're dealing with military exercises in the South China Sea. That's all revolving around the increasing U.S. and China tensions through the Taiwan lens. And this is another worry that we really don't need at this time. You know, things are a little bit unsettled right now. And the last thing we need is U.S.-China tensions rearing their ugly head. Unfortunately, that's happening right now.
But you know, Steve, overnight on Wall Street, we've had the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ Composite all seeing fresh closing highs. Now, Steve, there are obviously signs. Are there signs then in your mind that a market pullback is imminent, especially after all, we've got about 75% of the tech guys announcing earnings in the next 2 weeks. And if that doesn't come out in line with expectations, would you think that a pullback is imminent?
Yeah, I mean, you know, people are reading off Netflix 16% rise, last week. And correctly, they're buying what they perceive as the market leaders into what they perceive as going to be a positive earnings season for tech. Everybody's been buying tech, so this trade does make sense. It's not a crazy trade by any means. They're pausing on taking the more risky rotation trades as opposed to going into what they think is a more guaranteed pop post earnings. Yeah, they could be disappointed. There could be some significant pushback, but I ultimately believe we're making a move to what I consider a more inflection point towards economics. In other words, economics are going to start to become a lot more important for no other reason than we don't have any stimulus left to fall back on. Before, when the economic data came out bad, we used to say, oh, it's okay, we've got more stimulus coming. We don't have any more stimulus coming, right? You know, so we're stuck now. It is what it is. And really what we're faced with now is a very, very uneven global distribution chain for vaccinations. This is a problem, and it's continued to weigh on sentiment. And you know, the lockdowns combined with the slow rollouts in vaccines, and now the delayed in U.S. stimulus, just a lot of negatives, you know, dotting the background right now, and it just doesn't feel comfortable. And you know, right out of the blue, we have China deploying ballistic missile launchers in the sea of the South China Sea. It just a compounding carousel of negativity today. That's a problem.
Now, and on the other side of the equation, let's take a look at commodities. And what's your view on the reasons for the resilience in oil prices? Because after all, we've had a deep drop in demand globally because of the decline in economic activity. So that also one of the key reasons that's propping up oil markets
Just
and oil
intervention.
prices.
Yeah, it's just intervention. Really, it's the Saudi Arabia is reducing 1 million barrels per day in February and March, and now we've got compensation happening from other OPEC members, specifically Iraq, and I'm not sure if we're going to have more compliance compensation from the other laggards. All this really does is these are makeup production cuts because of overproduction in the past. So I think it's a good sign that OPEC is continuing to monitor the macro situation, and they're acting in a uniform fashion, but certainly not a rallying cry. It's just basically to buttress prices until we can get through this difficult period through the Northern Hemisphere, and also through the resurgence of COVID over in Asia, specifically in China.
Now, Steve, what are the events and data points that we should look out for in the coming week? Obviously, starting with the FOMC meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, the FOMC is undoubtedly important. I think the market would be shocked if there was anything but dovish coming out of the Chair Powell's mouth tomorrow. I think obviously as we end towards the end week, the point I was trying to make is getting back towards the economic data. We do have our first glimpses of GDP and GDP downward revisions. These could present a negative view to the current, negative risk to the current view. It is worrisome in the context of no more stimulus. So we have to really take everything with a grain of salt as far as how we approach things over the next little while. Listen, I still think there's a huge rally cap going to happen once the vaccine's back. What's going to happen between now and then is the big question, and this is why we're seeing risk taking a little bit of wobble off its normally pretty comfortable axis right now.
Steve, thank you very much for your insights. We've been speaking to Stephen Innes, Chief Global Market Strategist at Axi, on ASEAN's Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out www.bistech.asia for business and technology conversations.